I am so fed up with the ongoing issues with my Mk1 Ford Transit Connect. Oil leaks galore, the clutch has now gone the new clutch. So fed up, in fact, that I've decided to drop the entire engine and sort it out for good. In this video, I'll cover the entire engine removal process, from disconnecting all of the wiring, draining the fluids, dropping the subframe, removing the control arms, lowering the engine and getting it into your garden without the help of a crane. In subsequent videos, I will be covering the clutch replacement, replacing the oil cooler. I'll show you how to find out whether you've got a wet belt or a chain. I also had to pull off the exhaust manifold, so I need to put a new gasket on there. I've got a playlist below that will contain those videos and all of the other work I've done on this Transit Connect in the past, so go check that out if you own one of these and you want to know how to fix it yourself. So we're going to start by removing the battery tray, air filter, air intake hose, and then we can start removing all of the electrical connectors around the engine. Ooh, nice ratchets there. It's a nice length shaft you've selected as well.
Not the first time somebody's commented on my
illustrious shaft.
Nice shaft, nice knob. Anything else?
God, you're full of yourself. I guess you got nice balls as well.
Well, people have commented on my Kia Ceed. Another one. You can put it in shadow if you want. These are what you got to be careful with.
There is a lot to remove when you're taking an engine out, so where sensible, place bolts back into their threads on the chassis, and where that's not feasible, make sure you've got a container for all of the bolts. You don't want anything going missing because it's all got to go back together at some point. Might clip off slightly, there you go. Now I'd rather use a flathead because I hate myself. Sweet.
Disconnect the electrical supply to the glow plugs.
That one's really easy. It's probably not connected. Done.
That's the vacuum. That's the outlet pipe.
Oh, so we're going to leave that on the engine?
Yeah, you leave that on the engine.
Because the paint, you've got to crank it to get it on and off.
Disconnect the vacuum pipe. So how's that held on? Just undo that, is it?
I must have done that before.
That's bonkers. Maybe this is just a crap burn.
Is it? If you get that off there, then you can twist it. Electrics are out, so jack up the van and take off the wheels.
Disconnected.
So stack one.
Go!
The other one, what did I do with that? Did I? Yeah, ooh. Oh, look at that. Look at that aim. Yeah, we want to look at Henry now. He looks so proud. Look at how... Why does my coolant look like water?
All the coolest coolant, bro.
You're meant to be filming this. Oh yeah. Oh.
There she blows.
How's it feel getting filled, Henry? Henry, meet Phil. Oh, you can reach.
Orifice.
You can wipe the orifice. What do they call that? Cream pie.
No.
Don't tell me you don't know. Everyone knows what a cream pie is.
No idea what cream pie is.
Google it.
Just tell me.
Let me stop the camera first. If you don't already own a Haynes manual, I would certainly suggest buying one. But my word of advice is don't follow what it says blindly, because they kind of bundle tasks into sections and you might be doing one task that doesn't require everything in that list of things to remove. So you go through it. For example, it was telling me how to remove the subframe, and it told me to remove the anti-roll bar. Yet I'm replacing the subframe, so the anti-roll bar could have come out afterwards, and it would have made the whole job easier if I'd have used a bit of common sense. I'd also recommend reading through each section of the Haynes manual before you start removing anything, because you can save yourself quite a lot of time. For example, it says that you should work methodically around the engine, disconnecting the various wiring plugs. Now, I read that step and then took that to mean disconnect and detach the wiring loom from the engine. But if you read the next step, it says unbolt and disconnect the main engine bay wiring harness from the side of the inlet manifold. So if I'd have read ahead, then I would have found that I could have left all of that wiring clipped down onto the engine, meaning that I wouldn't have had to have remembered how it all went back together when the engine goes back in. Why is this? Oh, don't tell me it's the other end. Why have a bolt on that end? Surely that bolt. Oh, it did. Oh, fuck off. No, it's not. So next up, we've got to remove the brake discs, brake calipers, lower control arm ball joints, track rod ends, later on the anti-roll bar drop links. You've got to get the hub nuts off to get the drive shafts out. All of these are kind of focused in this part of the van.
Right, they'll come off with a gun.
Do you want a bonget?
I need something to hook that up there.
Yeah. Oh, there's some in the back of your vehicle, aren't there?
Oh, you cheeky sod.
See, I've even got to use some insulated wire. Ready?
Go.
Oh yeah, that's nice and easy.
Right. Next job, this one. No.
Too big? Too small?
Too small.
Blimey.
22, I think. Let's try 24.
24.
Yep.
Yes. Don't put it down. Screw it on the right way up.
Yeah, we're just checking. Right. Down hard.
Yeah. Wait, we slipped out. Oh, we're done.
Yeah.
Right, we are?
Yeah, it's done.
Nice.
So now, hang on. Lever that down like you were doing.
Yeah, it's hard to get it under the...
And somehow put it under
Okay.
here, put it under here or something. But it's got to be levered straight out. Go on, all of it. That's it.
Sweet. Careful of my shaft.
There you go.
Right, I'll loosen off the top one a little bit. Try that, it's really loose.
No, because if it comes halfway out.
Yeah, well. Okay. Careful, steady at the end.
What? With your teeth?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, God. You've been struggling with this. It's really tight. Oh.
So strong.
Where the offside drive shaft came out very easily, the same wasn't the case with the near side one. In fact, if I look at the Haynes manual now, section 8.2, drive shafts, it states that if removing the left-hand drive shaft, free the inner CV joint from the transmission by levering between the edge of the joint and the transmission casing with a large screwdriver or similar tool. So basically what they're saying is this one's a pig to get out. We did try in vain for about half an hour, but then Dan made a very good point that
By the time we get it, it'll just drop down with the gearbox, so we don't need to take it out here.
so we can just remove the drive shaft later on once it's out of the vehicle.
Give that a tug.
Next up was the control arms. Now, these were also a real pig to remove, and it was because the nuts looked like they were captive.
I'd imagine it's captive. What's happening there? Is that not moving?
So I told Dan, yes, the nut is spinning, and he said, well, go and get a spanner then. So off I went and returned with a pry bar for some reason. Why are they so anti-captivity? There you go. Yeah. Whoa! Got it?
Yeah, we're right.
And the other one. Now at this point I'm going to stop you right there and wish that I could go back in time and stop myself from spending about 2.5 hours trying to remove the anti-roll bar whilst the subframe was in situ. I didn't need to do that. As long as you disconnected the anti-roll bar links, you don't need to remove the roll bar here, and you can do that all later on. So I think we're really getting into the meat of this video now, because we're finally at the point that we can start dropping the subframe. Now you can see here I've placed a jack underneath with a bit of wood. That's going to support the subframe as I slacken off and remove the 6 bolts that hold the subframe to the chassis. So I think here you want to be really gentle with it. Lower that jack nice and slowly and make sure you've got control. Use a spare arm if you need to support it, just in case your jack isn't perfectly centered. And it should just drop down like that. I'm exhausted, but I'm relieved. It's done. It's almost out. Well, that's what I thought, but it turns out I hadn't disconnected any of the power steering stuff yet. So I had to wait until the next day when Dan was about to give me a hand. In order to disconnect the power steering supply and return pipes, I'd first recommend removing the coolant expansion tank for better access. Matt, what's this? Health and safety.
A trip hazard I put in for you. What's this? Why are these sat on top of the engine?
Well, because then they wouldn't get lost. And they're oily, I don't want to put them in my cab. No, it's not a trip hazard.
Put them in your big white bucket of oily things.
With that out of the way, we can move on to removing the power steering supply and return hoses. The return hose that Dan's pointing to is the more difficult one to remove. So to start with, we will remove the power steering supply hose that comes from the pump and goes straight into the reservoir.
Okay, nice and slowly.
To cap off the hose, Dan had the brilliant idea of using a nozzle from a tube of silicon.
Thank you. Piece of rag.
What?
Your hands and everything. Have you
Wait,
not?
did you not get one?
No.
You're the Sue mechanic. Here we're heating the end of the nozzle and then sealing it shut. This trick worked so well we used it on a number of different hoses in the engine removal process.
Done.
Now about that trickier return hose. You can buy a special tool, but if you're careful you can use a screwdriver to gently pry each of the tabs of the connector, turning it slightly each time until all 4 are free and it will slide off easily. Before we tackle the last hose, it's worth understanding why we're separating things where we are, because it makes the rebuild far simpler. There are 3 parts here, all going to different places. The reservoir stays in the engine bay, the pump comes out on the engine, and the steering rack comes out with the subframe. There's a hose linking each pair, so there are 3 to break. The supply hose we started with separated the reservoir from the pump. The tricky return separated the loop that runs past the fan from the length attached to the steering rack. And this last one is the pressure hose off the pump that supplies the rack. This one uses a flare nut designed to spin freely on the pipe and thread into the pump, just like the fittings on a brake line. Over time it can seize onto the pipe, so instead of the nut undoing, the whole pipe twists around with it. If that happens, hold the pipe still with one hand and work the 2 apart until the nut turns freely on its own. With all the power steering components disconnected under the bonnet, the last job was to remove the lower fascia panel on the driver's side and undo the pinch bolt to release the steering column from the rack.
Captive, baby.
And with that, we can finally drop the subframe and get the engine out. Yeah boy, come on. With the subframe out of the way, it's time to work through everything still tying the engine in. First the exhaust, a bit of maintenance spray on the 2 bolts and it comes away from the catalytic converter. We did try to separate the cat from the exhaust manifold as well, but one of the bolts sheared off, so rather than turn it into a whole job, we left the cat where it was for now and carried on. Next up, electrics. The starter motor wiring is freed from the bell housing and released at the motor itself. Then it's onto the alternator. The heavy battery cable comes off once the little cover's popped and the bolt's undone. Remember to disconnect the other connector, I forgot, and the wires snapped when I removed the engine. Then it's the last few connections. The gear change cables come off, the fluid supply pipe is disconnected from the CSC, and finally the 2 fuel lines are released from the filter, the pair that run down to the high pressure fuel pump and back. And that's everything free. Time to bring the sled in. The engine comes down in stages. The trolley jack goes under the middle of the sled and up against the sump to take the weight, with towers of 3x2 timber stacked either side of the jack, around 8 to 10 inches high. With the engine mounts undone, we gently lower the jack until the whole thing settles onto those timber stacks.
It's forwards. Stop. We're like heavily leaning forwards now. And as you said, the engine's heavier than the gearbox, so it's leaning.
It's wanting to drop down to your side first here. We're just about on the blocks.
Oh, cool.
Everything looks clear.
We're basically...
It's not ripping the radiator out.
No, we're very close. Oh, fuck. Ah, shit. What's that up against that?
Doesn't matter. Just you can't change it now. Drop it down.
Really gently, really slow.
Just go for it.
We'll just fully open it.
Go on.
From there, it's a bit like Jenga.
And now it's your turn.
A second jack lifts the sled just enough to pull a block out from one side, then we swap to the other side, lift, take a couple more away, working round it like that, a layer at a time. Alternatively, you could take the game of Jenga a bit too far and almost compromise the engine as a result.
We're down.
You took 2 out.
I know. And then
didn't put 1 back.
Well, I couldn't because you said don't get your fingers trapped.
Right, what I'm going to do is you're going to balance the engine for the top. Smooth.
Okay.
Yeah, well. That's it, let down.
That's when we hit a snag. To slide it out from under the front, we needed the van higher than we could get it. Almost dropped the van off of its axle stand in the process before deciding let's leave it as it is and take the front bumper off.
Let's go for it.
Careful. More effort required. Hang on, so
I thought you said they weren't that heavy.
I didn't say they weren't that heavy. They're not that heavy.
Turns out the wood was just bedding into the tarmac far too much. So put a couple of 3x2s down and away we go.
Oh, you can go home now. I can't have you doing it on your own.
Stop.
It will make me look really weak. Oh, what's that? Is it the rope? I think Colin Furs would be proud. Can you stop him escalating? Oh, look at that.
Well, thank you very much for watching all the way through. Now, my one word of advice is don't try this unless you can't afford to have someone else do it, because it is a lot of work. And don't do it if you do not have a second vehicle. I don't. That's my only mode of transport. So I've been heavily reliant on my parents, on Dan, over these past, I think it's been more than 3 weeks now. That's the other thing. Parts take ages to turn up. You can't just go down to your parts store anymore and get all the things you need. You've got to order stuff online. You've got to find all the part numbers. It's a bloody full-time job, this. So basically don't do it unless you really have to. Thank you very much for watching. I will, as I said, check out the playlist below. Keep an eye out for more videos on this series. I've got housework coming up. There's a channel update video. The previous one to this you might want to check out, because that tells you some of the stuff I'm planning to do in the garden here. And then, of course, there's a few van conversion videos coming up. So lots coming up on the channel. Thank you very much. Leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.